Today, we have a very special guest joining us, Christina Dearing. Christina is known for her extraordinary ability to help clients clear limiting beliefs and trauma, enabling them to achieve remarkable manifestations and financial success. She is a shaman healer and business intuitive who helps spiritual entrepreneurs scale to six figures and beyond. In today's episode, we'll dive deep into topics that will inspire and empower you on your journey. Get ready to explore wealth energetics, living a soul aligned life, and unlocking your spiritual gifts. Stay tuned for an enlightening conversation that you won't want to miss. Christina, welcome to the show.
Jillian, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be so much fun. I can't wait to dig in.
I am so excited. And me and Christina were just talking before the show and realized that we actually have mutual connections. And it's just such a small world. And I absolutely love it. Um,
Too.
and and it also actually is starting like from where I wanted to start. So I wanted you to start by telling listeners a bit about your journey from being a sorority girl, which you went to Chico and know some of like our family. So
Yeah.
it's so interesting. So I kind of wanted to start there, a bit about your journey. And then from going from being the sorority girl at Chico to becoming a shaman healer, what does that mean? And
Mhm.
business intuitive that you are today. So let's
Yeah.
start there. How fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's so funny because I do feel like every moment in time in my life was soul aligned. Like at that
Mhm.
moment in time, it made sense to dig in to, be a part of a sorority. I was philanthropy chair. So there is an element to like service that I already had within myself. But it made so much sense at that moment in time. But, when I look back, hindsight 2020, it's like I went from sorority girl to shaman. Like, what's that about? And it's like I had this, it just feels like an interesting path where I started having these like spiritual awakenings where it was like, okay, I'm still me, but there's an element to me that's more curious about energy now. And that's a part of me that's waking up to maybe there's something bigger at play here. Maybe I don't have to make money doing something I don't like to do, maybe I can start following my soul's journey and my soul's path and kind of let that lead me down this like beautiful path of like waking up to the spirit that's within my own body. And so it's like through this own journey of just starting to follow and continuing to follow what lit me up, it led me ultimately to shamanism. And what's really cool about shamanism is it's like they say shamanism chooses you. You can't you usually like they say people don't raise their hand and say I want to be a shaman today. It's like people come to them and say like you're being guided into this. Does that feel like it's in alignment with you? And I remember my own shaman who was, a Reiki healer and a psychic and all of these things was like said that exact thing to me. You're being guided into shamanism and how does that feel in your body? And I was like, in my body, it feels like a full body yes. But also, like, what is a shaman? I'm like Googling it, like, I don't know. Like, I'm going to say yes, but I don't really know what that means yet. And so, through that entire process, that initiation of just kind of following what my body was saying yes to, even though intellectually I didn't know what it meant yet. But now on the other side of it, it really just means someone who is connecting to the spiritual realm to bring down and ground down information that can support us in this human experience. And so there's many different facets of shamanism. Some people will bring in different medicines to be able to facilitate, trance-like states or psychedelics and things of that nature. But for me, the way that I facilitate is strictly through like the mind, body, and spirit. We just go in and we connect to what is your soul most desiring for you to know. And also, what's in the way of what you want? Let's move that energy because it's blocking you from the things that you desire most. So, just getting really clear on where is that energy living? And now let's uproot it and release it so that you can follow what your soul came here to do in the first place.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to go back to like in the middle of your journey of like when you decided to go on this journey and you said you kind of woke up. Was
Yeah.
there like warning signs or something inside your body or outside your body that was happening during that time that created that awareness for you that you needed to wake up or that there was more for you?
Yeah, this is twofold for sure. Where one, I was in a career that I kept getting the title, I kept making more money, and I just felt more and more empty. Like I'm like I'm 22 and I want to retire. That's a problem. Like I need to like figure out like what to do now. But I just stayed in it. I just kept being like maybe if I make more money, then I'll be happier, or maybe I'll just live for the weekends. And so for a while there, I was. And I'm like, there's got to be something more. So I just, through almost that law of polarity, I recognized that what I was doing was not it, at least when it came from the career perspective. And then the other part was, I started receiving these signs from the universe where it was like, the angel numbers started showing up, where I'd look down and it would be 444. And then crystals started to interest me and little things that interested me. But the big spiritual awakening for me was, I remember someone saying, you have to go see this psychic. She's amazing. And I had no idea what psychics did. I just knew, okay, maybe they tell a few. I don't know. I'm curious because my friend recommended her. So I reach out to this psychic and I was like, hey, I've never done this, but I'm curious if you have any, appointments available. And she's like, yeah, in like 9 months. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm available in 9 months. Like, let me pencil you in. I'm like, what in the world? She must be really good. So she pencils me in, and that appointment ended up falling on the day that my dog passed away. And I remember reaching out to her and being like, hey, again, like I've never done this, but I don't know if I need to be in the right headspace, but my puppy just passed away. And so I just wanted to give that to, like, should I come? Should I not? And she's like, I want you to know that I have a contract with the universe that these appointments, these sessions land on the day that you need them most. So it's totally up to you, but I'm here for you if you need me. And so I'm like, well, now I have to go, like there's something here. So I remember walking in and her being like, the first thing she says to me, apart from like, hello, is, lady wasn't a puppy. She was 14 and a half, right? And I remember being like the hair on my arm is like standing straight up. I'm like, yes. She's like, she's got some messages for you. And I remember just like sobbing, one, out of pure grief because it happened so quickly. And two, realizing, oh my gosh, our relationship isn't ending, it's changing form. Like the messages that she had for me were so specific. And the way that she knew that she had passed away was just like, it's not something you Google. Like there were 4 things that happened. And that was such a mind blowing experience. And it feels like it just cracked me open to like, there has to be something more. And so that was one of probably the biggest catalysts that I had, was suddenly realizing, oh, there's so much more at play here. It's not just what I've been believing. There's something so much more happening. And so it was like, I couldn't not believe it at that point, where before I was like, oh no. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, how did that happen? So I just started being like, okay, that's my new truth. And then kept following what lit me up even more.
Yeah. So, and was there any like fears you had, or anything that in the beginning kind of held you back from stepping into this? Because, it does sound like a lot of like woo woo. However, like just from working in the emergency room, for instance, right? All
Mhm.
I do is assess people all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I think that energy is such a big thing that I don't think enough people um, pay attention to, because our world is so busy.
Yeah.
So I want to know, like, was there fears that you had in like walking down this path that was placed in front of you? Like, what would people think of you? Will people judge you? Like, and then how did you, if you did have those fears, what did you do about it?
Mhm. So I did have the fears, and they came true, right? It was like, okay, I am so fearful that people are going to think I'm so weird. Like, what is she up to over there? Like, what is happening? And it was like, but once you see something like I did with that experience with the psychic and the medium, she was both. I was like, I can't unsee it. Like that just became my truth. And I was like, so no matter what, there's a part of me that knows I have to honor this now. So I'm just going to keep walking the path. For a while, I did it kind of silently because I was like, I don't want people to know, but I'm really curious. So I was kind of doing it more as like a passion project, and just like, I just leaned into that world of just like curiosity and like, do I have these gifts? Can those come online, or do I always have to go through another person to receive the messages? And so I just kept following that path. But then at some point, I started being like, well, what if I did something like this on the side as a passion project? What if I was a life coach first? And then I started bringing some spirituality into it. So I was a little more vocal about it. And through that process, I absolutely did get judged, where people were like, what are you, especially the people that I was closest to, they were like, what are you doing over there? This makes no sense. This is not the 12-year-old girl I remember, or the 24-year-old that was getting drunk with me at the bar. Like, what are you doing? It makes no sense. It makes me uncomfortable. Stop it. Was a lot of the messaging that I was getting. And so what I realized was several things. One, I had to deeply heal within myself the part of me that had a huge fear of judgment and the part of me that knew I had to do it anyways. So even if people were like, I'm not coming with you, I had to be okay with that. And I had to heal the parts of me that felt deep grief that people didn't want to come with me on the journey. But everyone has their own spiritual journey. And I had to really connect to that gets to be okay. Just because I had this massive awakening does not mean that the person I'm talking to agrees with me or also had that experience. And I just have to be okay with that. And so there was a grieving period for sure that I had to move through of the people that were like, I'm not coming with you. And I was like, and I can't stay here either. So that was really hard, for sure. And so I worked through with my coach, my healers, my mentors to just heal that energy around being able to move forward anyways, even when people didn't get it. And to me, what I realized on the other side was that's even more of an indication that it's definitely for you. Like when everyone around you does not get it, it means it's definitely yours. Do you know what I mean? Versus like, well, my dad told me to do it, or my mom did, or my friend did. So maybe it's mine. Now we're just kind of being swayed by other people. But if no one else gets it and it still lights you up, then it's 100% yours and you're meant to follow it anyways. So I just had to lean into my support system and heal the parts of me that felt a lot of grief and a lot of sadness and felt really judged in the process. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like on that level, what does it mean? Because it sounds like that is kind of a soul aligned life.
Mhm.
What does that mean for people listening? And how can people identify if they are on that path or if they need to make an adjustment?
Having a soul aligned life means that you are deeply honoring what lights you up the most. And the way that I love to think about it is I use my body as a way of assessing if something's in alignment. So, for instance, like my entire calendar this week, I'm like looking at all of it and I've got so much going on, but I'm like, everything on there is lighting me up. I feel expanded by it. I want to lean in. I'm excited about it. I can't wait for every single one. Like every single thing on my calendar is going to be different, but it's all just igniting a part of me that feels expanded. So when I think about my body, I think, ooh, there's a part of me that wants to lean in. There's a part of me that my chest feels open. My shoulders feel like they're almost falling back a little bit. I feel relaxed, but excited to lean in. So that's the body telling me it's in alignment. Now, when I think about my calendar when I was in corporate, it felt totally different. Like it would be like, oh, my chest would be like kind of closing off. I'd be like, I don't want to have this conversation with this person. My throat chakra is closing because I have a really good idea, but like this person always shuts it down. So I feel like I can't be seen and heard in this space or whatever that felt like, or my stomach is in knots because I have no time for myself and I'm working 60 hours. Like your body is going to start to tell you what's in alignment and what isn't. And the way that I always talk about that, like you were just talking about energy, when you walk into a room and you immediately know there's something in here that's off. Like you walk in and you just kind of feel like you're not safe or something. Like there's something there that's not like jiving with you and nothing has happened besides you walk in and you're like, something here feels like it's not working for me. That is your body telling you that something's out of alignment, that something's not meant for you. Maybe it's the room, maybe it's the people in the room, maybe it's the timing that you're in the room. Whatever that is, your body is signaling to you that there's something off. Versus you walk into a room and there's someone across the way and they're like magnetizing you in. Like, I have to talk to that person. There's something about them that's just lighting me up. That is a different felt sensation in the body. And so our goal is to actually honor what our body is telling us. There's a reason that things feel expansive and that things feel constricting. And that is completely unique to who we are, because something that I feel expansive might feel restrictive to someone else. So honor your body and what it's telling you because it is completely unique to you. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense, but I do wanna ask, like, how that works when somebody has, like, a trauma in the past that like, maybe it's not really that situation, right, that is causing the body to react that way, but maybe it's a situation in your past that is now showing up to this current situation. How do you know whether it's the past or the present that is actually affecting you, and what should we do about it?
Mm. That's a really powerful question because there are instances. So, the way that I think about triggers is like, a trigger will come from a trauma, right? We
Mhm.
have the trauma, And with the trauma, I think about it like a hot pan, like the pan is already hot. And so sometimes we don't know that the pan is hot, but it's over there on high heat and it's really hot. And then we walk into a room and we feel like we get burned, right? And the trigger is telling us that there's something traumatic already there that's happening that we need to take a look at. So it might remind us of something or someone that we need to start assessing and start healing. And so there's an important distinction between noticing, okay, wait a minute, the pan was already hot. Now I'm interacting with the pan and I realize it's hot, versus this is new stimuli. There's something new happening here and it just feels unsafe, versus it's reminding me of something that feels unsafe. So I think that sometimes when we're in the moment, when we're feeling the sensation, honor it and then unpack it, because we're not going to know in that moment in time, because the blood has now come out of the mind and it's in the extremities and something in us is telling us to go. So I would say maybe don't pause and analyze in that moment, like maybe just start to honor the season and just say like, I'm just not going to walk to that side of the room for a minute. Maybe there's something over there that's a little bit off, or maybe I just like don't actually need to be here and I can kind of take a step away. You're going to start to notice what that is as you lean into your intuition even more. Your intuition will tell you the answer. And so I think that's more of like flex that muscle, test that muscle, let yourself just honor the intuitive hits or the body sensations, see how it pans out. And then more and more often, you'll notice that intuitive hit is going to get stronger and louder, and you're going to get more clarity on where is this like originating from. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
totally. And I have 100% experienced that in my own life. And
Mhm.
it's interesting because once you like tap into your intuition, like it gets easier and easier to see it.
Yes.
But I think in the beginning, we're always looking for external, right, to prove our internal. And
Mhm.
so, how can one begin to step into um, leaning into their intuition?
So say that again. Sorry, it cut out on my end.
Our internet is pausing here. Can you hear me? There it goes. Can you
There it
hear me
goes.
now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So a lot of people, they're leaning on the external to um do the internal work
Yes.
instead of leaning into their intuition. So
Mhm.
how can we begin to lean into our intuition more rather than the external?
It's such a great question. At least I, and so many people that I know grew up following and checking the boxes. And through that process, we completely lost ourselves. It was like, mom loves me when I do this. Dad likes me when I do this. My siblings get along with me when I do this. And we lose ourselves in that process. And so the way that have been kind of guided into this is it's the story of the two wolves, where we've got the ego on one side, the one that's like, let me feed this one. People love me when I do this. I get external validation. And then we've got the higher self or soul on the other one. It's like the two wolves. So we've gotten into the habit of being like, I'm going to feed the ego. I'm going to feed the things that have people love me, that have people like me, that have people quote unquote accept me. And we forget about what our soul desires in the first place. And so what we need to do is start to pause and reflect and start to take away some of what we're feeding to the ego and start feeding it to our higher self by testing and learning. That's a really powerful way of starting to lean in. Is what if I start to honor this intuitive ping that's telling me to look into something that maybe my body's starting to close off to, my job, for instance. I knew underneath all the stories that there was something more. And so I just started to get curious. Like, I think so often we're like, I just want all the answers right now, but we have to feed the other wolf a little bit more. We have to start to honor that. We have to start to siphon away some of the food that we've been feeding to the ego to get curious about what does my soul actually want. And so through that process, I actually, because I completely lost myself, I didn't know who I was and what I wanted. And so through that process and that experience, I actually, like, to get really tactical, I took some online quizzes and I was like, okay, based on the things that light me up, what job would I be good at? Because I don't like the job I'm doing right now. What are some titles that I might be good at? And through that experience, these titles are life coach, healer, actress, singer, motivational speaker, minister, like all of these titles that some of them scared me, some of them had me feel excited. But what's fun is ultimately so many of those titles I've actually leaned into at some point now. But I leaned into the first one that felt the safest, life coach, where I was like, okay, I'm going to start to do that as a passion project. And then through that, my intuition started coming online even more, where it's like I just started feeding into what lit me up. And then it got louder and stronger from there.
So, how do you help someone find out like their spiritual gifts? Like, do they go online and take quizzes, or like, is there a process that you kind of go through? What do you do to figure out like what are my gifts?
hmm So, what's really fun is in my sessions, what I'm doing is I'm connecting to their soul and to their spirit guides. And I connect to mine too. And so I'm actually given that information. So that's the idea of business intuitive. I'm given that information. I share the information and they pressure test it through their body. They're like, "Ooh, like something about that just lit me up. I'm curious. Like, tell me more." Right. It's almost always that sensation where the information that I'm receiving, I just share what I'm receiving. And then they're like, yeah, that resonates. Something about that is really lighting me up. And so through that, we can then cultivate because what's really powerful is the gifts that come through. I'm then being guided on how they can ignite those gifts. So it's really fun because I have clients where, they'll be like, well, what are my spiritual gifts? And I'm like, let's connect. Like, I don't know. Let's see what the guides have in store for you, what your soul wants to tell you. And so as I'm receiving that information, I share with them what it is, what the gift is, and how to actually activate it, an exercise to do with themselves or their own clients so that they can unlock this gift within themselves. Sometimes it's about just witnessing the gift within another person. So I'll bring modalities into a healing experience. And through that, they suddenly start to wake up to like, wait a minute, that almost ignited that gift within myself too. Like I'll bring in certain modalities that they're like, I don't know how to do that, but by just witnessing it, all of a sudden they're able to do it. Like going into the Akashic records, things like that. It's like when they witness me being able to do that, sometimes that can unlock within themselves. And they're like, well, I feel like I'm accessing something new now. I'm going to share with you what I'm experiencing. So it's almost like having that sounding board too, to say, like, yeah, that is it. Yes, follow that. That path is unlocking for you, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I want to talk from there then on wealth energetics because I think that like at least for me, I can just speak about myself for a minute here. It's like you feel like you have this gift and you have like these tools that you want to help people with. And then it feels like there's this weird energy with your gift and money. And
Mhm.
I'm just going to say it like it is. How do we like I don't know, overcome, I guess, this challenge and kind of work through that with wealth energetics. Teach me about that.
Mhm. So I'll start with kind of wealth energetics, and then the idea of breaking through the fears is going to be really unique to each person. But
Okay.
the idea of wealth energetics is money is just energy. So when you think about it, I have signed up for probably hundreds of free masterclasses because I love to learn. Sometimes I show up and sometimes I don't because I didn't put my energy in the space. I simply said, here's my name, here's my email, but I'm not paying to go to the masterclass. So I haven't really put my energy into the space. Money is energy. But if I were to pay $10,000 for a VIP experience with a coach or a mentor, you can bet your butt that I've booked the airline ticket, I booked the hotel, I'm going to be there early. I'm going to be sitting there taking notes, recording it, and I'm fully going to be leaned in because I want to experience something incredible from the space. And so what that allows me to do as someone who's purchasing is to fully show up for myself, right? I've put my energy in the space, therefore that's what I'm receiving from the space. So if I did something for free, I'm kind of stepped in, I'm kind of not. If I didn't, I'm fully stepped in and I'm immersed. I want to receive something really beautiful from the space because I know that it's going to expand me in some way. And so the counter is also true. So if someone is paying you abundantly for your gifts, you're going to step in with both feet. You're going to be fully present with that person. You're going to be prepared for the session. You're going to like really allow yourself to immerse versus I work in corporate and I simultaneously do this on the side. So I'm doing the center splits and my child's calling me and I don't have childcare because I don't have the money to pay for it. That's a different energy. So when we allow ourselves to be paid abundantly for our gifts, we can honor that gift and the person that's stepping in with us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes total sense. And I think that it's true. Like
Mhm.
I feel that I've done both things. You know, yeah, I feel like there's just more passion and energy towards the whole situation. uh, For sure. And I have done the same thing where I've signed up for things for free and then paid money to be in something, and definitely a different experience. How
Mhm.
can how can it help us in getting rid of like the fear? So it's like, okay, we have this thing that we are gifts. We
Mhm.
are letting people know that we're doing this, right? And
Mhm.
we are having them sign up for to pay for it
Mhm.
because we know that we want them to be invested and we want our time to be invested as well, and we want to have the best outcome for our client, right? So how can we what how do we know like what the price is that we should pay, or what should we charge? Like, is there anything on energetics on how that works? Is there any information?
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite things to teach on.
Okay,
And
good.
yes, I love it. Um, and I'll ladder back to before as well when you think about wealth energetics and why is it not working for me. I'll move back to that one after I talk about pricing. But what I think is really really powerful is once you've started to break through the thing that's in the way of going after what you want, because it's going to be an individual basis. What stops me from success or from a fear of failure or fear of success or fear of charging for what I want is different from what someone else is their fear. Like you think about it from an energetic perspective. The stories that I grew up around and beyond that, if people believe in past lives, there's energy that comes into our awareness that we actually need to cleanse and clear across all time space realities to be able to fully step into our gifts. So I can talk more about that, but let's circle back to pricing. So pricing, this is my favorite things to teach on because people get really tripped up about this. People are like, my coach told me to do this. My coach is charging this, but I don't feel worthy of doing that. So there's a couple different ways to do it. Number one is you're going to start to notice when your pricing is a little too low. You're like, I don't want to show up as much. Like it's just not feeling like as, let's say, enticing for me to step in with both feet. I feel like I've expanded, my gifts have expanded. I'm bringing so much more into the space. You get the intuitive knowing that it's time to maybe expand a little bit into my pricing. And the way that I'll do that is I will either use my body as a pendulum or an energetic field to feel into the energy, or I'll actually use a pendulum. And it's what it is it's just a crystal on a string. And it's really, really fun because what you can do with this is you can essentially ask it yes or no questions that you know the answer to. So what I do is I always say like, the first question is, my name is Christina, and I see how the pendulum moves. So for me, a yes is it moves in a circle. And for me, with my body, if I just use my body as a pendulum or my body as an energetic source, because we are all energy, I'll say, my name is Christina, and I'll just be standing there with equal weight in both of my feet, and I see what my body does. My body will lean forward when my answer is yes. So it just slightly moves forward. And then I ask it a no question, either the pendulum or my body. I live in New York City. I live in Dallas, Texas. So the answer is no. So my pendulum, if I'm using a pendulum, will move back and forth when it's a no, or my body will fall backwards when it's a no. Now, the reason it's important to test this is because the way that my tools are moving, and my body can be a tool, my pendulum can be a tool, the way that that's moving is going to be unique to me versus the way it moves for someone else. So it could be the opposite for someone else. So you really want to connect to what is a soul aligned yes and what is a soul aligned no. Then from there, we'll dig into pricing. So it's like, okay, now I've got my yeses and my nos. So now let me start to connect to my energy around pricing, which is, okay, it is for my highest good and the highest good of all those connected to me and of the highest vibration to charge my one-on-one coaching between 1,000 and 2,000 a month. So I like to give a range. and then see what your body or your pendulum does. It's going to say yes or no. And the reason I like to caveat this conversation with those three things is you want it to be for the highest good of yourself. You want it to be for the highest good of everyone connected to you, but you also want it to be you also want it to be of the highest vibration. Because sometimes the things that are for our highest good feel awful, which you've seen people come into the hospital and they have things that are happening and it's like a wake up call and it doesn't feel good, but ultimately it got them back on track with what their soul desired most, right? So that's a for your highest good, but not of the highest vibration. Like it doesn't feel good in the moment. So we want it to be all three. We want it to be highest good and for me and the people that I'm connected to and of the highest vibration. And then we start to get really clear. So let's say it's yes, charge between 1,000 and 2,000. Okay. Should I charge 1111? See if it says yes or no. Yes. There's your answer. Now, let's say you get that answer and it freaks you out because you're like, I've never charged that much for my one-on-one ever. Now, what I do is normalize your body around this price point. So what I do is I use EFT tapping and I start to envision myself charging that amount, stepping into that energetic exchange, seeing how I show up differently as I'm tapping on these different meridians in my body to calm my body's nervous system and normalize the new price point. So my body's on board and then my mind catches up. So when I say the price out loud, someone else's body is connecting to my body and their energy is connecting to my energy. And they're like, it feels right. They feel calm about it. They feel neutral about it. I think I feel calm and neutral about it. Right. And they're going to start to lean into what your energy is around your price point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I do think that, energy we can read too. So if you're not
Yes.
feeling aligned with your price point, neither is the other person because they're going to feel the energy. You don't even have to say anything, right? So
Yes.
I think that makes
Yes.
total sense, and I love the idea of like saying it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's really powerful because, then you get used to hearing it too and feeling it in the body when you hear it. I think that's
Yes.
huge, and I think I might take your advice actually.
I love it. Oh my gosh. A
Right?
10 out of 10, recommend it. Yeah, because when we're expanding, it can feel really like nerve-wracking and scary for our body. But you're so right. People buy based on energy. So it could even be like a free tube of toothpaste. I think about it this way. If someone's like, this is actually a completely hazardous material, and they're like, just take it, it's free. But something about their energy just doesn't feel good. You're like, I won't even quote unquote buy a free thing of toothpaste because the energy is off, right? Like
Yeah.
we're reading
Yeah.
energy all the time. And so
Yeah.
we buy based on energy. If someone fully believes in the value of what they're sharing, their body and their nervous system is on board with it, suddenly I am too. Suddenly I want to lean in and I don't feel like it's that shocking or scary to my
Yeah.
nervous system as the other
Yeah.
end of the relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really powerful on both sides, right? Too. Because what about the person that's purchasing it? Do you think like saying it out loud is helpful for that too? Like, this is what I need, this is what they're offering, this is what it costs. Like, how do I feel about it? Like, let's like talk about it from the receiving end, or the person that is going to make the purchase.
Hmm.
It,
So
how
it's kind
is
of,
it the same type of thing?
so my guess is if you're leaning into a container that is meant to expand you, you're going to feel a little bit nervous and a little uncomfortable with that price point. As the person who's purchasing, you're not meant to feel totally neutral about the price point yet if it's meant to really expand you. Like it's going to make you a little uncomfortable because you're going to be asked to put a little more of your energy in here than you ever have before. So my guess is, at least this is how it's been for me, is anytime I've expanded, when they've given me the price point, I typically feel a little bit nervous around it. And I'm like, okay, so this is me like hitting a wall here. But what this wall is telling me is not to unpack my bags. It's telling me this is my next greatest thing to break through. Okay, so now I'm recognizing if this feels like a soul aligned, energetic experience, like this person feels like my mentor, like I know that what they're bringing to the table can expand me, but the price is a little bit nerve wracking to me. Here's what I did because this past year, had a $25,000 investment with one of my mentors. And they gave me the price point, and I was like, oh heck no, like, no, that's peace, like peace and love, goodbye, And I was like, whatever. And then what I started to do is I actually came inward and I was like, why would I have manifested this into my reality if I wasn't meant to step in? What's this really about? And so what I did is I actually said, body, this is another way to tap into your body. If you could tell the story of this fear, how would you tell it? Because your goal is to somatically move the energy that's in the way of your next greatest breakthrough. So for me, when I ask myself that question, body, no words, not intellectualizing it at all, body, if you could tell this story about this investment, how would you tell it? And I felt like one of those car dealership balloons, like my arms and legs were going everywhere. I felt like complete chaos
Yeah.
moving through me. And as soon as I let my body almost like release all of that fear, it was like all of a sudden, all this wisdom started coming to the surface, which was, I can trust myself. I can make this money back. I know that this is meant for me. I'm going to do it. And it was a completely different energy after I let the fear and the block that was blocking me from that moment in time, after I let it move through my body, I could actually access the wisdom on the other side.
Mm.
And then it allowed me to expand into that. And now I've done another investment with this mentor again. So it's like, it's already, I've seen how the past year for $25,000 has paid off. For me, that investment was like, felt more neutral this time because I had already expanded into that version of myself. So it can feel one or the other. It can feel expansive and scary, or it can feel expansive and neutral. You never want it to not feel expansive and neutral. Then it's kind of just a waste of your money. You want it to feel expansive in some way and either neutral, or there's something there that you need to just kind of move to fully expand into it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
It does. And I don't know if you experience this, but I'm just going to throw it out there because this is life without secrets. But I feel like when you walk into this entrepreneurial space, there is like so many people coming at you that think that like you need to get their thing in order to like advance your business or whatever. Um, and then there's, to me, it's hard to decipher the energy because there's a lot coming at you. Is
Mhm.
there something that you use? Like, do you write them all down and then do you feel like what aligns with you? Like, do you start with you first and figure out, like, okay, I have all these tools already. Like, do I need to add to them or do I just need to use the tools that I have more frequently? How do you decipher this?
Mhm. So if you're at a point, and sometimes I will do this with every investment too. Every big investment that I have, I use my pendulum or I use my body to tell me it is for my highest good and the highest good of all those connected to me and of the highest vibration to invest in this space right now. Because sometimes if we don't add the right now, it's like you're meant to invest in 5 years when you have a lot more coming in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
Right.
do like to add that caveat. I'm meant to invest in this space right now. I'll do that even when I get the intuitive hit, because especially if it's a big investment, I want to really connect into, is my spirit, are my spirit guides on board with that too? Is my soul really on board? Or am I just leaning in because someone's really exciting me? Because I think I get really excited when someone else is excited, like we all do. And so it is important to, one, you do want to start building up your own intuition inside of you. I think that can be really powerful. But if there is a part of you that's questioning or not totally sure, or you just want added validation to what you already received, then I would use the pendulum or your body, like I mentioned earlier, to connect to, is it for my highest good and is it of the highest vibration? Because both of those are really important. And I think, adding that caveat, and should I do it right now, is really important too. So I would say it's twofold. Build up your intuition, because now I use the tool as validation versus it having to validate outside of me. So I would say build up your intuition, kind of some of the ways that we talked about before, following the things that light you up and seeing how it pans out. And then also use that tool to either get your answer while you're building up your intuition, or to validate what you already know to be true in your body. Like, one of the other tools I use for my intuition is I will say it out loud, the question, and then I'll flip a coin. And however it lands, it's not what the coin says, it's my guttural reaction to the coin. So I'll do this sometimes with trips where I'm like, I should go on this trip because everyone else is going and I feel like I should. But there's a part of me that's like, I've been traveling so much, I just want to stay home. So I will flip the coin, and it will land on stay home and I will immediately get like, my body's, that's my answer. Because I'm so grateful that it said what I already knew to be true, but the coin just validated what I already knew versus if it landed on go on the trip and my reaction is, oh, like tightness, I don't want to go on the trip though, that's my answer. I'm not going on the trip.
I love that. So good. This has been so fun. I've really learned a lot personally. So I know our listeners have too. So thank you so much. Is there any like final piece of advice you'd like to give to our listeners who are maybe on a journey to unlocking their spiritual gifts and wanting to achieve financial success?
Mm. Everything is a breadcrumb. So I think sometimes we want to go to that end goal or we start comparing our chapter 1 to like someone's chapter like 97 and we're like, "Oh, I'm so far away. It'll never happen. I'll just keep, you know, doing what I'm already doing." Everything will build upon itself. Like if someone told me when I first started out on my like on this journey of following my passion, following my soul, if someone had told me you're going to be a shaman and you're going to be teaching on wealth energy, I would have been wealth energetics. I would have been like, there's no way that I'm doing either of those things because of where I was at that point. But I had to follow every step that felt a little scary, but also exciting. And then it built upon itself. And through that, more and more of me started unlocking. And I just kept following what felt expansive. And I 10 out of 10 recommend just leaning in with someone who is like an unbiased perspective, who is like a healer or a coach, or just someone that you can lean in that holds space for your intuitive truth. Because I think sometimes we'll lean into coaches that say, do it this way, copy and paste it this way. And we lose our soul alignment by just copying and pasting versus really connecting to a mentor that can say, what is your soul most desiring for you to build right now? Because sometimes we'll be like, our mentor might like, this is a maybe not a real example, but let's say the mentor is a night owl and they're like, I've built a 7-figure business by taking all my calls from 8 p.m. on. And you're like, cool, that builds 7 figures, but you're a morning person. And you're like, I guess I have to do all my calls at 8 p.m. because that's how I make 7 figures. Like, no, connect to what your body is telling you, connect to what your soul is telling you, because you're meant to build it in alignment with your soul. That's how we have all the vitality to be able to build the thing that we came here to do. And so just allow yourself to lean into spaces that really foster your intuition, your growth, and know that every single thing is a stepping stone to get you to where you ultimately desire to be, and to really honor every single one of those stepping stones because you're learning something so powerful and pivotal that's setting you up for success for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That was like a whole rewind session and listen
I
again
love
because
it.
that was so good. So
Yeah.
where can our listeners connect with you and learn more about what you do?
Mm. The one last thing I do want to add to that is follow the
Yeah.
feeling, not the goal. That's the one thing that just dropped in as like, I really
Mm.
want to like bring that into the space too. Follow the feeling of what you think the goal will get you. And then like follow all the things that have you feel that way. So if I think that a 7, 8 figure business will have me feel free, expanded, joyful, present, start to feel free, expanded, joyful, present now. Follow the things that have you feeling free, expanded, joyful, present. And it's going to put you in rooms that will start to bring that more and more into your space. It will build upon itself versus let me follow the 7-figure. But then it starts to get overwhelming. Then it starts to, we lose ourselves in the process. Follow the feeling, not the quote unquote goal.
I think has been one of my favorite things on Life Without Secrets said so far, to be
Mm.
honest.
Yeah.
Like, because I talk a lot about emotions and energy, and that is huge. I love that. Follow the feeling, not the goal.
Yeah.
That is so good.
Yeah.
I
Because
love that.
sometimes we think it's the goal and then we're running that race and then we get to it and we're like, why do I feel empty? It's because it wasn't
Yeah.
that in the first
I
place.
mean,
Follow
I
the
mean
feeling.
that's so true in relationships too. Like you
Yeah.
could apply that to any area of your life, right?
So true. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Especially relationships too. Yes. Where you're like,
Yeah.
they're good on paper, but they're not my person.
Yeah.
Free yourself,
Yes.
free them because they're someone else's person and your person is right around the corner.
So good. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, well tell us where we can connect with you.
Yes, I would love it. So if you're tuning in, I have my own podcast, which Jillian's going to be on. I cannot wait to have her in that space. It's called You Unlimited, where I'm just interviewing 6, 7, 8-figure entrepreneurs. We reverse engineer how they've built what they've built, how they've stumbled upon the way, how they've followed their spiritual gifts, how they've unlocked their soul's most aligned life. It's so much fun. It's one of my favorite places to play. So it's called You Unlimited. You can dig into that space. There's so many incredible guests that just pour so much of their wisdom in the space. Definitely join me there. It's absolutely one of my favorite places. And then you can find me on Instagram at I am Christina Dearing. I'm always just giving into that space. I do oracle card pulls in that space just for fun. So if you're feeling ignited, you want more in the space, absolutely lean in there. I would love to connect with you there.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here with us and sharing your heart and all your insights with us on the show.
Of course, Jillian, thank you so much. This was amazing. And I can't wait to have you on mine as well. You just have so much wisdom and beauty that you bring into every room. So just thank you for fostering this conversation. This was amazing. And for everyone that's listening in, thank you for giving us your most precious resource, your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And right back at you. I felt like when we connected, like immediately, I felt like a connection with you in person. So I
Yeah.
was so excited to just like chat on here and see where it goes because I knew that it was going to be aligned. So thank you. To our listeners, I hope you found
Of
today's
course.
episode as inspiring and enlightening as I did. From exploring wealth energetics and emotional mastery to understanding the power of living a soul aligned life, Christina has given us so much to think about and apply in our own journeys. If you'd like to learn more about Christina, make sure you go to her Instagram and visit her website and learn more about her transformative work. So be sure to check out her links in the show notes. And remember, you have the power to unlock your spiritual gifts and achieve the success you desire. Thanks for tuning in to Life Without Secrets. Chat with you next time. Hey there, it's Jillian from Life Without Secrets. Ever feel like you and your partner aren't quite on the same page? Well, you're not alone, and that's exactly why I created our latest issue of Truthful magazine. It's packed with insights and stories about bridging that gap and finding a deeper connection. We're diving into real conversations about needs, feelings, and how honest dialogue can rekindle that closeness that you've been missing. Why not explore this together? Go grab your free copy right now at lifewithoutsecrets.com and turn those pages into shared moments. Can't wait for you to dive in and share your thoughts with me.